and foremost, on behalf of myself, Lorenzo, and Hyundai and the Marqet Group, we are hoping that everybody is safe and sound, and we're really looking forward to a great afternoon of spending the next hour talking about our industry and some topics of discussion for everybody. Most of all, I'm extremely proud of sharing the screen today with my buddy Lorenzo, who we've worked together for a very long time, over probably over 15 years. So with that said, I'm going to get into the presentation. Myself, I'm the regional director for Hyundai. I've been here for approximately 4 years. I reside in New York, and I've got about 20 years worth of experience in the surfacing industry. This is the only industry I've been involved in. So I'm excited to talk to you today about some great information.
Great. And this
Lorenzo.
is Lorenzo. Great. This is Lorenzo Marquez. I've known Glenn for quite a bit of time now. He says we both have 20 years of experience in surfacing. I started a lot younger than he did, but it is a pleasure
Are you trying to say I'm older? Is that what you're doing?
Well, you read into it however you want to. But it's great to be talking to Glenn. Thankful to the opportunity to join you guys today. I am the CEO of Marqet Group, a marketing agency specializing in surfacing, kitchen and bath, remodeling, and construction out of Houston, Texas. And I see a lot of familiar names and faces, so I'm really happy to be joining you guys, and thankful to Glenn and Mark from the team of Hyundai to invite me to be a part of this, and we look forward to sharing some good insights with you guys.
All right, great. So let's get started. So we worked really hard on trying to bring you a very objective presentation on the state of our industry and where we believe it's headed. You know, today's theme and message is all about transition. So what worked for us in Q1 or even 2019 isn't necessarily going to work now or in the near future. So my theme to you is 10 to 18 months. 10 to 18 months is essentially what we have to work through. So when we go through this, essentially with COVID-19, 3 things had to happen for this economy to recover. Number one, you know, the feds needed to take emergency action with ultra low interest rates. Number 2, the government needed to step in and give a cash infusion, which is our $200 billion healthcare bill, and then also our stimulus checks. And then third, and finally, the most important is we need a vaccination and a vaccine. So based on everybody's indications, that's going to take 12 to 18 months. So what I'm trying to implore to everybody today is our business in the kitchen industry is changing, and we're going to have to adapt for a period of 12 to 18 months on making our business a little bit more fluid in a very unstable way. So that's our timeline. I'm going to get next into our agenda for today, and our agenda is fairly simple. Section 1, we're going to talk a little bit about pre-COVID. Where were we before this happened? Section 2, we're going to talk about the FUD concept, which is essentially fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And then section 3, we're going to drill down a little deeper and talk about behaviors and behavior patterns and how that affects purchases. Section 4 is where all the magic happens, talking about improvising, adapting, being nimble, and overcoming the current situation that we're in. And then finally, we're going to close with a little bit of supply chain management. So let's talk a little bit about pre-COVID-19 construction. So looking at our industry from an analytical sense, I generally look to certain sectors to determine our trajectory. As an executive in the surfacing industry, I look at all different factors. So this next slide is going to show you some of the industries that I and our company pay attention to. Luckily for all of us, the economy has been at record-setting levels for years. This slide, we're going to look at the major sectors that we pay attention to. First and foremost is commercial construction or multifamily. Multifamily was up 5% in units and 17% in dollars. And when you're looking at a small growth of 5%, remember that 5% is on millions of units nationwide. Second indicator that we look at is the new home construction market. Back in 2018, when it crashed, it negatively impacted our industry and our economy. And since 2018, it's made a very steady, progressive climb back to where it is right now, which is 16%, approximately 16% increase in starts. Third is a residential remodeling sector, and that's trending upwards of over $300 billion. And that's NARI remodelers, that's kitchen and bath dealers, and that is fabricators in general, essentially the whole remodeling sector. And finally, and most important, banks were lending. So all of those good vibes end there as COVID first swept into the world. Go to the next slide, which is coronavirus, right? So you're talking, I remember being at KBIS and my sales manager, Kim Cleveland, talking to me about this, this disease that was happening overseas, and we didn't know a lot about it. And I remember Kim and I were talking about it and trying to understand, what was the virus. And then, we all left KBIS and went back, and then everything started going steadily downhill. So March was the month that coronavirus changed America. We went from, nothing to everything in a period of, 2 weeks. So during that period, fear, uncertainty, and doubt swept America, deservingly so. But the good news is, with fear, uncertainty, this is actually something that was used by IBM back in the day to generate more sales. So although fear, uncertainty, and doubt is in the marketplace, we can still use that to our benefit. So there's a lot of sales techniques that have been used to kind of sell through this in the past, and we're going to go through some of those today. So what we're seeing right here is essentially the stay-at-home orders as of 4/7/2020. So, the month of March was fine in the first 2 weeks, and then all these mandatory shutdowns happened and stay-at-home orders swept across the country. The first one to do it was PA, and the whole state shut down while everybody watched, and then came New York and New Jersey, and then it swept across the country. So it left everybody in a state of paralysis, and everybody rushed to their homes. Now, in our defense, in our industry, this can actually work to our advantage. Now, I know everybody, you watch the news and it's all negative, right? It's all that fear, uncertainty, and doubt strategy, planting negative thoughts in your minds. And yes, there are a ton of bad things happening. And yes, there's a 14% unemployment rate. But 90% of that 14% is with targeted people that are under $40,000 a year. So although there are some horrible things, there are some items and benefits that actually can work to our advantage. So one of these that I wanted to bring up to you today is called cocooning. So cocooning is a term about staying inside in one's home, insulated from perceived danger. This is something that was first invented, the term was first invented back in 1981. So imagine this. You hate your kitchen, then you're locked in your home for 10 weeks. By the time you're done, you absolutely despise your kitchen. The lockdown meant that approximately 35 to 40% of consumers began eating home-cooked meals for the first time in a long time, because people were obviously afraid to go out, even afraid to get takeout because they're afraid of other people touching their food. So this feeling of cocooning actually can work in our advantage, which you're going to see on the next slide. So the positive impacts on cocooning and remodeling, essentially, people looked at their homes as being a safe haven, right? So, your home becomes a safe haven, it becomes your epicenter. Homeowners are going to appreciate or hate their space depending on how they feel about their home. So there's going to be a rise in home spending, and this is going to only emphasize how the consumer feels about their home. So let's put it this way. The fact of the matter is there's going to be no more cruises. There's going to be no more European vacations, no more summer camps, no more sports, no more flying on vacations worldwide. People are going to have disposable income that they can turn their safe place into the perfect safe place. And this isn't just me talking or Lorenzo talking. This is the Joint Center of Housing for Harvard University. People, they believe, are going to see a surge in digital technology because of fear. A great example would be the cable and internet industry. Right now, the cable and internet industry is booming. Why? People were stuck in their home and realized that their internet was too slow. People realized that they didn't have all the channels that they want. Netflix booming, all because people were stuck in their home. And all the industry leaders believe this is going to benefit the remodeling industry as well.
Well, and just to add to that, Glenn, I also think that there's a huge sentiment when it comes to the way people live in their own homes. Traditionally speaking, from a business travel standpoint, you go out, you travel, you engage with clients, you engage with customers, and you probably order a steak and serve every once in a while on a company credit card. Then you come home and you realize that you're back to your normal life. Well, all those things are gone, and now people are looking at improving their quality of life at home. They're looking at spending more time, forced or not, with the family, and also have the ability to entertain in their own house. I don't believe that social distancing will be a thing that is going to fade away soon. I don't believe that we will all ever go back to, not washing our hands thoroughly every time, or not, being afraid of what we're exposed to. But I do believe that the home sentiment, the family life, the quality of life has improved in just human nature, like normal people in society overall. So there's a huge opportunity as it comes to channeling your messages and making sure that you're prioritizing what you're telling your audience when it comes to how your business can improve their quality of life. There's been a lot of different trends in the market. I've been an NKBA board member for 7 years now, past chairman for 2 years before, and there was a pretty big period in my history overall in the surfacing industry where it first was like eco products, then it moved into aging in place, then it moved into, well, now grandma's living at home, but the kid's coming back from college, so we have a multi sort of generational design style. But now the design style is moving towards quality of life at home. So that represents a huge opportunity for our industry as well.
Excellent. So essentially what Lorenzo and I just stated in the previous slide was confirmed by the Joint Center of Housing Studies of Harvard University. They essentially believe that, the time spent at home is going to result in future remodeling. The lower interest rates for finance products are going to be more affordable, and you're going to see an increased bid request for products related to health and safety with regards to the health and hospitality market. So the keys here are people who hate their home are going to make changes. They're not going to be traveling. They're not going to be spending this money on anything else. They're going to pour this money into renovation. In addition, the lower interest rates, are going to create a surge in equity loans to pay for this. So, one thing to also think about is the unemployment rates are 14%, which means 86% of people, are still actively working. So as we transition to the next slide.
Well, hold on. And just to add to that, Glenn, I do a lot of work with a lot of different fabricators across the U.S. And the general sentiment is that commercial work is still ongoing and it hasn't stopped, only in a few markets. But studies also show that the social distancing sort of awareness combined with lower interest rates will push people to move out of living in apartment complexes and actually owning their own property so they can maintain that social distance and take advantage of the interest rates available. So although there is a decline expected in the future related to new home builds, there's going to be an uptake related to real estate.
Great point. So the new normal, we hear this constantly. What exactly is the new normal? I'm sure that everybody here has been in this position. It's full of fear. How many of you been to a store recently and felt scared of the person next to you or got annoyed when they were too close to you? So there's ways to also use this to advantage. Our advantage.
Look, I mean, they're like trying to step away, and I'm like, it's okay. I'm not like, to me, it's the opposite, but obviously there's a different sentiment there.
So IBM made a lot of these techniques famous, selling through, fear and uncertainty. And honestly, we do a lot of it in our everyday work now. We don't realize it. Like, for instance, I have people right now that are actually buying more stock than they did at any other time because they're afraid of any supply chain issues. So, we all use fear and uncertainty in our daily lives. We just don't know it. Like, hey, I would stock up now because shipping's delayed, or think about the end of the year when price increases go into effect in January, and you always get that surge in December because people want to buy before their price goes up. So, I think you're going to see this across the board in the remodeling sector. Everything that I'm hearing is positive, and that business is starting to open up. I'm not saying that things aren't bad, but I think that we need to keep into consideration our target market hasn't been affected as much. So as we go into the next slide.
I just like to add to that, there's obviously fear and uncertainty, and there's people that are stocking up, but that also shows you that people care about their business, and it shows you that people are willing to do whatever it takes to ensure that their customers are satisfied. And so as leaders of your own industry and your own business, you have to continue to lead, and you have to continue to do as you need to when it comes to ensuring the stability of your business, your family, and also your employees. So I think this next slide basically talks about that specifically. So Glenn, sorry for interrupting you, but take it away.
No, not at all. So people still need products, but they want a safe virtual experience. Most of all, they want certainty, right? People want to know that they're safe. So people and companies that could provide this win. I could tell you that our companies are working diligently to make sure that we make both our employees feel safe and also our companies feel safe as well. So on the next slide, we're going to go and we're going to talk a little bit about human behavior, right? So when we talk about behavior, we're talking about things are changing at a fast clip. So while purchases are currently centered around basic needs, right? I mean, everybody went into this panic buying and, hey, I need toilet paper, and, hey, I need paper products, and I need to overbuy and fill my freezers. People are panic buying. But shoppers are also more consciously buying local and embracing digital commerce. I mean, a great example of this was, Lorenzo's video before, which, by the way, was very well put together, where it showed the person on the couch skimming through grocery products. I mean, that's what we're doing now. People are trying to avoid human contact and they're buying digital. And I think the next set of slides are going to show you how we're going to transition. SEO traffic right now for kitchen remodels is at an all-time high. Same thing with paint and flooring. Due to workforces being at home, people are spending 60% more time online. And most importantly, you have to think about your company and your brand, because consumers are paying attention to how brands are reacting to COVID-19, and they're allocating purchases accordingly. A great example of this is a seafood chain in Virginia that's been all over the news. People went for Mother's Day to pick up their food and waited 3 hours, and fights broke out. I can tell you right now, that's extremely bad for their brand. So making sure that you're planning properly and making sure that you're taking care of your customers whether they're a kitchen and bath dealer, whether they're a homeowner, is a paramount fact. Go ahead, Lorenzo.
Well, and also just let's all think about our individual selves, and let's all realize that humanity has changed. We cannot continue to operate in the same way that we were operating a few years back. We cannot continue to rely on somebody to bring us business or us going out and delivering the same sales pitch. Right now, there are a few things that are common denominators to everybody's needs. Everybody needs health. They are looking for engagement and attention. They're looking for connectivity. And they're also looking at seeing what's on the other side of this pandemic. So as a fabricator, dealer, remodeler, installer, builder, whichever profession you're in, you have to scale back and think of the human sentiment that's behind either a buyer for a construction company or a homeowner. It's the same thing. They're looking for validation, they're looking for connectivity, and everybody's lives have changed. So we have to be able to adapt, and we have to be able to sort of take a step back and use the sort of time that we have available now to be able to make those changes.
Excellent point. So looking at the categories of consumers or purchasers right now, EY Consumer Index is a famous publication, and they go through consumer purchasing behaviors. So when we look at the 5 categories currently of COVID consumers or purchasers, you'll see that get to normal is a person that spent that is largely unchanged. They haven't really felt the effect of COVID. They still have their job. They're still earning their money. There's been no pay cuts. Then you look at the cautiously extravagant, which makes up 25%. And these people have a belief that something's going to happen soon, and they may cut back their spending a little bit, but they're going to spend all their money on important items such as large purchases. So right there, what it's telling you is 56% of homeowners right now, or companies, 56% of people are still making purchases normally. Then you're going to transition to 22% are people that are being more frugal. They're trying to get back on their feet. And then, you look at the people like Keep Cutting, who recently lost their job, 14, 13%. And then the younger ages, which are bang with the buck, and they're just spending carelessly. So a large portion of the categories of purchasers are still purchasing. Next slide.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. So when we look at construction project survey by Fixer, which is a company that people from the NKBA have recently published, and several other companies, are homeowners putting off planned projects, right? So what's going on in the market right now? Well, 83% of people right now are still going ahead with the project, although that may change a little bit. The majority of people are still going ahead. So 54% are saying yes, but they're only delaying for a short period of time. 29% are saying, hey, no, things are going ahead with schedule. And then 17% are saying, hey, we're stopping indefinitely. And that's primarily because 40%, the 14% unemployment rate is essentially all people, the majority of people that were making, an income of $40,000 or less, and they're generally not the target market for large kitchen remodels. And then on the right, you're seeing projects are currently underway and proceeding as planned. 37% said they're proceeding, 31% said they're proceeding but slowly, and then 23% is saying, yes, there's been no interruptions. So on the next slide, we are going to go into improvising, adapting, and overcome. So to me, it's easy to be a leader when everything's great, right? I mean, the business is going great. Every day you wake up and you have incoming sales coming in. But when times start to get rough and things start going downhill, that's the time where leaders really need to shine, and we need to step into the forefront and really lead our people. And now's the time as leaders of our companies to start looking towards the future and stop being so tactical about today's business and really start looking forward and being more strategic. So on the next slide, what you're going to see is people ask me all the time, Glenn, what's the biggest key to improving sales? And I tell everybody all the time, it's all about relationships, right? It's all about relationships and relationship management. Our industry is changing from an upfront and personal to being virtual. Now, some people may not like that. My sales guy in my BDM and PA, Gary, called me up after the first webinar today and said, I don't want to be virtual. I'm an upfront and in-person guy. And yes, I do realize that, but our business is changing and you're either going to get on board or we're going to get left behind. So if you ask me what our best selling tool, I would tell you it's creating the best customer experience. It's not about hard selling. Now is not a time to hard sell. Now is a time to have the best selling tool in the world, which is enhanced customer experience, right? So in order to do that, we have to transition from an industry where we do everything in person, right? I mean, we do in-person consultations, in-person bidding, in-person site visits. We do in-person we do everything in person. And that's going to have to change for the next 12 to 18 months. So this crisis puts our strengths and weaknesses, in the spotlight. And the coronavirus pandemic is not just any crisis. People have been locked down, and the nature of response to that is forcing people to be physically separated from their families, their friends. You see people doing drive-by happy birthday wishes. I mean, this isn't normal, right? But that's what we're talking about. This is the new normal for now. So we have to rush to making our companies and our businesses more virtual. So here's the 4 keys: digital revitalization, optimizing the sales process for virtual interactions, actually caring for our customers, which is going to lead to customer retention, and then differentiating ourselves. I will tell you this, there are 0 tire kickers during pandemics. So if we have leads, if somebody is taking their time to call us right now and ask for a sample, email us, ask for us for pricing, they are obviously very serious about their project. So we need to act with urgency on leads. And it's something that I always promote with our people, is we need to have a sense of urgency, especially right now. So the first thing we're going to go into is digital revitalization. Next slide.
Well, and just to add to that, Glenn, I think that, I share the same feeling with you as far as things that need to happen. But one of the biggest positives about this whole pandemic has been that we've all finally learned to embrace the digital world. I personally have not connected with Glenn other than every other KBIS, and we used to talk every day, a few years back. It's great for me to see Kimberly Cleveland and Mike on the call. And so while digital revitalization is happening, human connection is also taking a stronger part, and it's the digital world that's helping with that. So I just wanted to add my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's even the same thing with you at home, right? I mean, I have a very close family. I talk to my parents, all the time. But because of this, we've been FaceTiming my mom and dad with our children every single day. Every day at 6 o'clock, I get the FaceTime from my mother. And it's actually made us closer during this pandemic time, and we were already a very close family. So here's what we want to talk to you about digital revitalization. Number 1, everybody is using the internet right now as their prime source of information, right? People aren't driving around strip malls looking for showrooms to go into to patronize. It's just not the way business is. So we have to go all in on digital spending, right? First of all, your website needs to be phenomenal, right? It needs to be updated and phenomenal, especially updated with, information about how your company is dealing with the pandemic. So your website presence needs to be on point. the search engine optimization, which Lorenzo's going to talk about a second, and content services is extremely, extremely important. So one of the things that is in the forefront is content. So we want to do less advertising, less sales, and more content to the masses, positioning you as the industry's best resource, right? Reaching out to customers for online reviews. Right now, I can tell you right now, people are going to Google, they're Googling, kitchen and bath near me, or, stone fabricators near me. And then the first thing they do is they click on those reviews. So, if you have like a 2-star or a 3-star, they're passing you up for somebody who's got a 4 and 5. So the jobs that went well, you should be all over your customers on posting reviews right now. Extra time, even if you don't have time, you have to get social, right? Right now, it's all about social media engagement. It's about Instagram. It's about Twitter. It's about Facebook. So making sure that you're all over that. And the one thing that I could tell you has worked for a lot of my customers that I brought to their attention is, we get busy all day long. You're pulled in a million different directions. You're never going to create content for the mass if you don't have a customer communications task force. Identify 3 to 4 people in your company that could work on crafting messages that you want to send out to your community and get them executed. And if you don't create a task force, it just gets put to the wayside because you're busy doing other things. So great content right now is about cleaning. It's about safety content, what you're doing with your employees to make sure when they're in their houses, they're being safe. And then Lorenzo on the next page is going to dive a little deeper on that.
Right. So like I said, right now, everybody's looking for empathy, and it's about time for all of us to be aware that the digital world is not going anywhere, and in fact has saved most of our economy over the last few months. Now, as you embrace the digital world, there could be a lot of different things that you may be confused on how they work. And I talk to a lot of people and they say, well, we have a website, but we really don't need a website because we don't sell consumers. Well, let me tell you something. Every single purchase begins with an online search. 93% of people search on Google other than any other platform, and the rest searches on YouTube, which is also owned by Google. So the mindset of we have a website, but we don't sell to consumer is something that everybody needs to step away from, because even large purchasing buyers and agents are looking for reliability and they're looking for information online. I started marketing as a career, and they used to always tell us that, show your logo 3 times or your message 3 times and it sticks to people. Well, that old mindset of branding is gone. We don't rely on what customers or companies tell us about themselves. We rely on what other people say about that company or that product. So reviews are more important than ever. Now, some of the best practices that I would recommend as it comes to embracing the digital world is making sure that you're providing information with intent. That means that don't feature your BACA on your homepage because consumers or even trade professionals don't even know what that is. It's great that you have it. Good job on you for being able to pay for it. But people need to know how that BACA is going to expedite the design process or the delivery time or the design abilities. So always provide information with intent, leveraging your resources. The second thing is ensuring that you have an online experience which helps consumers and trade professionals to engage and to be connected with you, making sure that you have both a site that works perfectly on desktop and also a site that is mobile optimized. As I'm saying all this, my 6-year-old kid is calling me on FaceTime because now he's also embraced technology. So I apologize for the delay or the noise. Make sure that your website is mobile optimized because 50% of searches happen online, either through a tablet or also through a iPad, or I'm sorry, through a phone. So you have to make sure that you develop a plan to provide your audience with content that has a local feature to it. If you are in New York City promoting a brand and spending money on, say, calling it a brand without creating a local connection does not make sense. If you now all of a sudden become an expert in COVID and talk about healthy kitchens without ever having any experience or just trying to leverage that, it's not going to make any sense. But find a way to create local content based on your audience that's going to help you drive traffic to your website. Now, there's a lot of different things related to Google that essentially how SEO works. And how SEO works is that you have to be able to have good website infrastructure, because if you don't have good website infrastructure and you have broken links and you don't have a web map and you have a slow server, you're going to lose your audience. If your website takes longer than 3 seconds to load, and if your pages are broken within your links, you're going to lose an audience, and that audience is going to go somewhere else. So make sure that you have good website infrastructure. That also includes having good conversion points across the site. So if you look into your direct website performance, you'll be able to see what your bounce rate is. And having a bounce rate is not necessarily a bad thing, or having a low or high bounce rate is not necessarily a bad thing, but you have to make sure that you're getting your message across, and throughout your pages, throughout your website, give people the ability to connect with you. People do not want to have to find you. You need to be able to have them find you. And so it's important that you keep that in mind. One of the best things that I say is always to focus on Google My Business, which has now become sort of the new Yellow Pages. And I think that at this point, everybody should be familiar with that. Just in case you're not, I will go ahead and take this time to show you on screen what part that is. But if you're on Google and you search for countertops in Florida, you're going to get different things. You're going to get an ad, which is referred to as pay-per-click. You're going to also get Google My Business, which is your directory listing, which now serves as a Yellow Page directory. And then you're going to get those companies that have high SEO, have high domain authority based on that specific keyword. Now, a keyword is not one word. A keyword is a phrase. So you have to make sure that you're utilizing phrases or words that pertain to your business that can drive traffic to your location. If you have a pretty strong marketing digital campaign that includes social media and email marketing, ensure that you're providing content with intent so that you're driving people to go to your website so they can look for meaningful information and not just to look at pretty pictures, as Glenn said, or to essentially help you communicate or drive traffic. Back to you, Glenn.
All right, great. So the next part that we're going to go over is optimizing the sales process for the virtual interaction. So can you just expand that for me, Lorenzo? So our industry it's all up close and personal, right? I mean, everything that we do is in person, and most of that has to change, right? So when we talk about contactless sales process, we all have the ability now to do this, and some of my customers are already doing it now. So instead of doing in-person consultations right now, I mean, use Zoom. Call up your leads, call your customer, whomever that may be, whether it's a dealer, whether it's a homeowner, call them up and do a consultation online, right? It's what we do all day long now. Virtual meetings, we should be doing all virtual meetings along with the consultations. And eventually, when things open up, we are going to do one-on-one meetings in person. They're just going to be within 6 feet and everybody's going to have PPE on. But for now, you can do this. One of the most interesting things that one of my customers is doing right now is virtual bidding. So they actually Zoom called with somebody, and the homeowner showed them their kitchen so they can actually see the configuration. And then the homeowner was able to actually measure the countertop and give them the dimensions, and they were actually able to use that as a proposal for the homeowner to understand, what their price was going to be. You have the ability now to also transition into video product selections. How easy is it to FaceTime or Zoom and show somebody a slab? I know I can't speak for most companies, but as a corporation, we are now creating videos for each one of our colors so that homeowners, kitchen and bath dealers, builders, whomever, can view our slabs not only in full res digital images, but also see it in a video panning from left to right. Now, some fabricators are really ahead of the curve and they're using Slabsmith. So this is easy. I mean, if you're a fabricator and you're using Slabsmith, you already have a digital image of every single slab in your inventory. So being able to transition the slab image to the sales part in the beginning is fairly simple. And then you're going to get your sign-offs on your veining and your seam placements through the same Slabsmith approval as well. It's also perfectly, it's very easy for you to get online signatures as well with all of today's PDF capabilities. One example I would say is I had a meeting with somebody in the kitchen industry and they were like, no way, this stuff is going to happen. I said, look at the automotive industry. I mean, it's tanking, right? But only 2% of their sales were ever online at most. It's 10% of the overall industry right now. People are actually doing virtual tours of vehicles, doing all their financing online, purchasing vehicles, doing digital signatures, and the car showing up at their doorstep, right? White glove service. If the car industry can do it, the kitchen industry can. It's just a matter of understanding the paradigm shift in your head and moving towards that. Lorenzo, you have some thoughts on that?
Yes, I do. And as a matter of fact, obviously embracing digital technology is important. It's long overdue. But one thing that I want to make sure that everybody hears on this call is that this pandemic has hit a reset button in our lives. Personal, financial, business, whichever way you want to call it. And so if you have contacts that you haven't reached out to in years, don't feel bad about doing that right now. If you have never done anything digitally on your company or your website or social media, don't feel bad about starting right now. I think that right now, everybody's level of tolerance is a lot bigger when it comes to connections and embracing and seeing businesses that are making an effort. So by all means, feel free to reach out to previous contacts, to remake connections, and also to embrace the digital work. As we go forward, we are going to begin looking into a process that focuses more on content that is needed for consumers and buyers to make decisions. But let's not forget about the basics. Because you fabricate countertops or you sell slabs or you sell cabinets or faucets, whichever line of business you're in, do not forget that your consumers are making a pretty large purchase and they may not necessarily be aware of the steps. Step back to the basics. Train your customer in how you're going to deliver an experience. Talk about what cutouts are about. Talk about what edge profiles mean. Talk about what a radius corner is. Those are the things that people are actively looking for right now. And if you can become an influence and an affiliate to them, you're going to be much better off. If you have the ability to add third-party plugins to your website, such as quoting systems or chat functions, this is the time to do so now. So I want to share with you guys another example, and I know I'm going off the presentation, Glenn, but I want to share with you guys another example of how a business can essentially help in how you can develop your content online. So just to give you an example, if you have content that engages, I went from being on the first page to now I'm on the second page, and I want to have
Great company, by the way.
What's that?
Great company, by the way.
And I want to be able to find product by brand. I want to be able to shop by color, or I want to be able to see how many products per page. So if I want to focus on looking at Hanstone products, and I want to create a digital experience for my end user, but I also want the company to give me a good digital experience, I can now look at a sample or a swatch. I can view the full slab, or I can see a picture of what that product looks like. And I'm sorry if it's too small for you guys to see, but you're able to see if a picture works. And you also have touch points where you actually engage customers to go from homepage to product category to brand to color, now to a fifth category, which is creating a connection with you. And that in itself would allow you to have better Google ratings because people are spending more time on your site. Google is not in the business of popularity. They're in the business of driving traffic to a location where their users want to review information. So the more information you can provide them, the better you'll be because Google will essentially gratify you for that. This is not the time where a website is not a need. This is a time where a website is a need, but it's also an experience. And you have to engage with suppliers such as Hunstone, as you saw, that have the ability to provide you with great content where you can build your website without having to go to their site or to a third-party site, thus taking your efforts and putting them back on them.
Excellent point. All right, so this is the one that really means the most to me. We are obsessing over customer interactions. It's really the most important part of it, right? I mean, it sounds simple, and it is, but primarily we have to be more authentic and more empathetic because we want to retain customers during this downturn. The fact of the matter is some customers are going to go away, so there's going to be less customers to have. So we need to figure out ways not only to retain them, but also create long-lasting relationships with these people so that we flourish down the road. So, being really empathetic and authentic to them, cold calling them just to check in and just to see how them and their family are, being essentially more human and less transactional. Another thing that I would say is, really promote how you're going to take care of people. Are all into social responsibility. So promoting your PPE usage with your company. Are you going to be the company that shows up with no masks and handkerchief on? Or are you going to be the company that comes with masks and gloves, which we'll get into a little bit more? And then on the AR side, obviously being a little bit more flexible with payments. I know it's hard because of cash flow, but people will remember this as you go. And then Lorenzo, I think you're going to expand on this a little bit.
Yeah, so I think, like I said, this is a reset button. So we have to all focus on the customer experience and making sure that that customer experience is delivered across your entire operation, from your salespeople, designers, all the way down to your installers or your, tradespeople. So take time to develop your value proposition and build your team with information that they need. Some business owners are taking this opportunity to essentially make personal adjustments as needed, but it's important that those people that are still employed feel that they're part of your culture as well and that you're connected with them, because that's going to be the impression that your customers are going to walk away with. If they walk away with a good impression, they're going to provide you with a review, which in turn will become validation from a third party for future clients. One of the things that I think this pandemic has also taught us is that we all need to have a crisis management plan. Pre-drafted letters on how to respond to delayed installations because of a pandemic, hurricane, whatever happens. How do we respond to leads that are waiting for a quote? How do we keep people motivated to do business with us? So it's important that you figure out what your crisis management plan is, that you're vocal about it. I've done, I think, maybe 30 webinars over the last few months or few weeks. And the question is always asked, well, are we being annoying by sending out an email about COVID because everybody's doing it? And the answer is no. You'll get 21 to 25% open rate on your emails, but make sure that people at least know that you're taking effort into their business and into your relationship with them. So any opportunity you have to create that empathy for your audience is greatly appreciated.
So talking about differentiating sales strategies, first, I'm going to concentrate on really two here. Self safety. Quick story. My lines got knocked down to my home, and I had to have two vendors at my house. One was Verizon, and one was ADT. So Verizon showed up, and the guy had a handkerchief over his face, a bandana over his face. Came up to my front door, rang my doorbell. I couldn't even open my door because it was so close to my house. And was just total disregard for, personal space. And, it was just a bad transaction. The other was ADT. ADT showed up. The guy texted me from my curb, letting me know that he was here and wanted to ask if he had permission to walk towards my house. He also showed me a pair of gloves through my front door window that he was going to put on. He explained that he was going to walk to my home, put on the gloves in front of me. He had an ADT branded mask, and he was going to punch on my keypad to check everything. He had Lysol wipes on one belt loop, and he instructed me he was going to wipe down my keypad. And then in the other belt loop, he had an aerosol spray can. And he told me he was going to spray my foyer, and then he was going to go outside and do the work that he needed to do. Obviously, out of those two, I came away extremely impressed with ADT and the precautions that they took to keep my family safe. And although it's something very tiny as properly positioning your company with PPE, that's what people are paying attention to. We are selling safety and we're selling certainty. Another thing that you want to do is, especially right now, is align with a financial provider, even if it costs more. I get feedback from my customers all the time. I don't want to offer financing because it costs me money. Well, think about how much it's costing you by not offering financing, because people are going to where they can finance large projects right now. Lorenzo?
Sorry, I lost my screen for a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Definitely agree with what you said, Glenn. I think that right now, as we've heard in the past, we are at war with the invisible enemy. And anything that you are not doing or considering becomes an opportunity for your competitors to do. So this is not the time to go talk to your Home Depot expediter as to why orders are not coming through. This is the time to build your business in new ways and develop a story about your company that is unique to each channel. So if you do consumers, trades, remodelers, whichever it is, make sure that you have that value proposition and that you're executing towards that channel with an individual message and an individual story. This is not a one size fits all. We are the greatest in PA. We are the greatest in whichever market. This is about making sure that you are thinking outside of the box, developing your online efforts, and engaging with your audience with empathy.
So the supply chain, over the last several years, there's been trade wars between China and the United States. And those trade wars ultimately affected the construction industry significantly. Then the pandemic hit, and the largest trade partners of the United States for building products, are Italy, China, Turkey, India, and all these countries have shut down. And that sent a ripple effect for delayed and canceled shipments across the country and on all these projects. And that growing feel of deglobalization and self-independence on the United States is now trending upwards. So on this next slide, we're going to go through some of these items with regards to supply chains. So can you hit the next slide for me, Lorenzo? So although China is stabilizing, the delays are going to linger on. Unfortunately for the construction industry, imports, the United States imports billions of dollars of stone slabs, quartz slabs, countertops, appliances, sinks, all the way down to ready to install cabinets from China. So, this is going to have a great effect on what we do as a construction industry. And like I said, we import $560 billion worth of products from China, which represent 21% of all of our imports, specifically for the building product segment. So ultimately a trend you see of deglobalization and buying here in the United States, not only in the construction industry, but even the PPE industry, where 47% of the world's PPE comes from overseas. So on this next slide would be exactly what I would suggest you looking at from a business standpoint and a leadership standpoint. Number one, this all comes down to relationships. We went over a lot today. We went over, everything from COVID and, purchasing behavior and people, what people's behavior are right now due to COVID. We went over, how this is going to affect our industry, who's going to be purchasing, who's not, the different types of customers. And now we're coming down to, this is essentially our last slide, and it talks about our supply chain and vendor partnerships. Right now, more than ever, you need to rely on people that you can trust. So part of that is having great relationships. Our core strategy here at Hyundai is having great relationships with our customers and having great relationships with our employees. That's probably the biggest takeaway for me, is making sure that you have great relationships throughout the supply chain. Things that you want to consider, where is the product being made? Is it being made overseas? Is it being made domestically here in the United States? What's the distribution model? Is it direct? Is it a distributor? Is it a combination of both? How is the product available? Is it stocked? These sound like simple questions you should be asking yourself, but while we're going through these issues, we really have to look at this and ask these questions. Another big question you should be asking yourself is how profitable am I on this line? How valuable is the line to me? Because with less customers, there is going to be less business. And so you want to make sure that you're positioning yourself from a profit and loss standpoint to make the most that you can on these projects. Another big component that I would strongly suggest making sure about is, design innovation, making sure that you're working with suppliers that are innovating. The best designs are always going to sell, no matter how much they cost. And then finally, flexibility, cost, terms, whether you have stocking programs or consignment, having flexibility with the companies that you deal with, especially right now, is extremely, extremely important. And then, making sure that you have support at association events and that you have sales reps that are actually helping to grow your business. So with that said, that is the end of today's presentation. I know we definitely covered a tremendous amount of material. I'd like to thank Lorenzo. Lorenzo is one of the best in the business. I would certainly use his contact information, which is listed on this last slide. If you have any questions or opportunities for him on the marketing side of the business, he is absolutely phenomenal with brands and brand building and helping you grow your business, both on the sales side and the profitability side. And if you have any questions for me, I'm certainly available to answer those as well. So if anybody has any questions, we're available. If not, thank you so much for taking time out of your business today and speaking to us.
Well, and Glenn and everybody, Mark and everybody Hyundai, thanks for having me on the call. It's certainly a great example of reconnecting with people through crisis and understanding that relationships are important. And I'm very appreciative of everything that you've contributed and worked on for this call, Glenn, and also for the team at Hyundai for having me. If there's anything we can do just to answer questions, or by all means, let us know. There will be a survey that's going out probably tomorrow morning just to get your feedback on today's webinar as well as future content. So we ask that you please respond to that and you allow us to continue being your business partner and to help us grow together. So Have a great rest of the day.